rumors spreading round in that Texas town about the shack outside the game.
Okay, folks, we're going to get started with our next group. We have with us today from the Sprint Car Hall of Fame, Mr. Bob Baker.
Hi, it's nice to be with you, Dennis.
Bob, go ahead and give folks a little, the Reader's Digest version of what they can expect to see over at the Sprint Car Hall of Fame.
Well, my name's Bob Baker. I'm from the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, and I work there as the executive director. Our racetrack is a 4-story building that sits next to Knoxville Raceway on the Marion County Fairgrounds. Our bottom floor is a museum that features 30 to 35 open-wheel sprint car, midgets, big cars, dirt champ cars. Our second floor is a conference area where we host wedding receptions, weddings. We've had a few funerals up on the second floor. Do quite a few Pinewood Derbies for the Boy Scouts, a lot of youth-oriented programs. Also, our second floor hosts our Hall of Fame, so all the Hall of Famers plaques are up on the second floor overlooking Knoxville Raceway. We have a small movie theater on the second floor that seats 42 people and a very small library for people to come in and do independent work. Our third and fourth floors of the museum are suites overlooking Knoxville Raceway, and that's what keeps our museum open year-round for race fans to come in and learn more about sprint car racing, is the revenue from the suites.
And also with us today from the National Corvette Museum, and who doesn't like Corvettes?
Absolutely.
You'd be un-American if you didn't like Corvettes, is Wendell Strode. Wendell, give us the lowdown about your facility, please.
All right. Well, the Corvette Museum is located in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is also the home of the Bowling Green Corvette Assembly Plant, the only place Corvettes are made in the world, which was a major factor in the museum being located when it was being talked about and proposed, was the fact that the Corvette Museum, the Corvette Assembly Plant was there. But another reason that it's there is because our local Chamber of Commerce, when we heard that a group of Corvette enthusiasts was looking to start a Corvette museum, we felt like through the Chamber of Commerce that it only should be located in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So we, the Chamber of Commerce, put together a package that basically donated 30 acres right on the interstate, right almost next to the Corvette Assembly Plant, and also agreed to provide utilities to that parcel and a road. So that idea for the museum started in the late 80s, and the groundbreaking took place for the museum in '92, and it opened Labor Day weekend 1994. Originally it was 68,000 square feet, and in 2009 we completed a 47,000 square foot addition to the museum.
Now, we heard a question about the track earlier in the day. What is the status of this track? I can't wait to see it opening.
Well, in probably about 2005, 2006, we started doing high-performance driving events at a track, mainly Virginia International Raceway. We've also done Putnam Park, but we've done them around different tracks across the country. And I guess we could say that from that we kept getting the question, when are we going to be able to do that here in Bowling Green? So through a long process, kind of starting in 2007, doing a whole lot of due diligence and talking with a lot of track people and visiting tracks, why we did decide to move forward with that. So we did get the proper rezoning. We've acquired 184.05 acres. We have finalized a track design, working with a designer out of Washington State, and the contracts have been awarded for the clearing and the grading and pretty much the paving, I guess we could say also, which will probably start May of next year. The track is scheduled to be opened in September 2014. And it'll be a 2-mile course and a 1-mile course, and combined 3-mile course. So we're very excited about that. I might just say that in the green shirt back here with me is Mitch Wright. Mitch, hold up your hand there. Mitch has just come on board with us in the last month or so, and he's our general manager over there. And also Tom Blair is next to Mitch, and Tom's been involved in this project pretty much from the beginning, and really has spent a lot of time doing a lot of due diligence, and now still quite involved in helping us do some sponsorship solicitations, and looking forward to get it involved. But it's probably going to be about a $22 million project initially. We'll also have of course, a control tower administration building. We're going to look to have garages. We think it's going to be first class. It's got almost 1.5 miles of frontage on the interstate, so we're real pleased with that. So we're excited about it. It's open to anybody that wants to rent it, so keep that in mind after September 2014. Well, actually, we're going ahead and renting it now, or taking reservations for it. But it's a very exciting project for something that the museum to take on and do, and we feel very good about it.
Bob, earlier today we were talking about what do the fans want, and I'll ask you the same question, because whether you're a racetrack or a museum, the idea is to attract a lot of fans. How do you stay relevant with today's racing fans, and have you figured out, or how do you figure out what the fans want?
I think the fans that visit our museum or visit other museums want to be entertained. They want to be told a story. They want the story to be not only entertaining but historical, so that they can learn a little bit while they're being entertained. For the 50th annual Knoxville Nationals, I think it was 3 years ago, we had the idea to bring in as many Knoxville National winning cars as we could get in the museum, and I think we were able to find 17 cars that had won the Knoxville Nationals in the past 50 years. And that was a huge hit with the fans. People stopped us at the door and they said, we really like this, and we like you have the history on these cars, and who drove the car and who owned the car and what year it won the Nationals. And so we kind of stumbled into that with the 50th annual Nationals, wanting to do something to attract fans and entertain them at the same time. And then the following year, we didn't want to let the ball drop, just because the 50th annual Nationals was over, so we came up with an idea to do a salute to champion, and we started with what we thought at the time was the best, Tony Stewart, and Tony loaned us 6 of his championship race cars, so we had a sprint car of Tony's, USAC Midget, Silver Crown car, his Home Depot car he won his first NASCAR Cup race in, his IROC Race of Champions car, and it was a wonderful display, and the fans really enjoyed that. People would stop, they'd see our sign on the highway, and they'd come in if they weren't even, going to the races in the museum. They'd just stop in to see Tony Stewart's race cars in our museum. So that worked out for us. So we stuck with the Salute to Champions theme 2 years ago. We did Jeff Gordon's, along with John Bickford, helped us locate Jeff's cars, because Jeff doesn't own any of those cars anymore. And so we were able to bring in, Wally Helming helped us with his USAC Midget, and we had a Silver Crown car that Jeff drove, a Wing Sprint car, of course a Cup car that he drove, and I think we had 6 of Jeff's cars there, and the T-shirts and posters. That worked out really well for us. This year, right now in our museum, as we're sitting here talking, we're in our last month of our Salute to Champion Mario Andretti, and we've got 6 of the race cars that Mario Andretti drove inside our museum. And a lady from 3M that tours the country came to our museum just as she was touring the 3M plant. They bring people by periodically, and she said, "Where's this exhibit going next?" And I said, "This is the only place you can see these 6 cars of Mario Andretti's that he actually raced." And she said, "They're not going to like the Smithsonian or another museum." I said, "No, this is the only place that I know of where you can see all 6 of these cars at one time, all together." And so it's pretty impressive that for a small museum, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum in Knoxville, Iowa, we're able to bring in world-class exhibits to attract people to the museum. And so our challenge is to continue to bring in exhibits like that that will not only entertain people, but help fill in the history blanks in the past, from the past.
Wendell, do you have old Corvettes, newer Corvettes? Sometimes those folks don't get along. And, the old Corvettes are better, doggone it. How do you manage to keep both of those groups happy? Because those are really your main customers.
I call that the Corvette ego, and probably our biggest challenge is managing the Corvette egos. Actually, the museum, idea for a museum actually started with the National Corvette Restorer Society, and they were quite involved with it for a long time. And if you're familiar with the NCRS, they're the ones that are involved in restoring it to how it come off the factory, and they have all these rules and regulations, and they're very structured, and they don't really deviate from that. And when the museum opened, some of their members were really more involved with managing the museum, and they kind of had this idea of, I know more about Corvettes than you do, and I don't want to listen to you, I want to tell you my Corvette stories. And the museum really suffered for the first 2 years, had a grand opening, but then really almost went into foreclosure. So we were asked to kind of go there and see what we might could do from the standpoint of turning it around, I guess, if we could word it like that. And the thing that we made real clear is that it was a Corvette museum for all Corvette enthusiasts and for automotive enthusiasts that would come there and interstate travelers that would stop there. So we made it real clear, I think, and we took a little heat initially, but it is a challenge, I will say that, and not only from that standpoint, but then you have some Corvette clubs, and some of them like to have competitive events, and some of them like to drive their Corvettes and eat ice cream, and some of them like to do a lot of charity work, and we have to also network with a lot of them. But typically we'll have about 70 cars on display, and that'll generally be all generations, and I can't say that we have one for every year, but a lot of times we will. One program that we might mention, and this gets back to the newer cars, and Tom, is it Howard? Where's Tom? He just was sharing with me that one of the programs is when you order a new Corvette, one of your options that you can select when you place that order is to take museum delivery. And he just went through that in September. He was sharing that with me. So on what we call our Corvette Boulevard, right now we're doing 8 deliveries a day of new Corvettes to new Corvette owners that have selected that option. So people visiting the museum will be able to see the absolute almost latest right off the assembly line.
Both of your facilities are 501c3 non-for-profits. I just had a friend of mine in the non-for-profit with a kids charity say, oh, these governments are always throwing new rules at me. What is the cost of staying compliant and keeping compliant as far as with the non-for-profit rules? Is that turned into a big part of your business, I guess?
It's a lot of paperwork. It really is. We just underwent an audit, and we do one every year. We have an independent auditing company come in, and they spot check inventory. They go through, check minutes from board meetings. They set up basic shop in our lobby for 3.5 days, and then they come back about a week later and they spend a day and a half with us requesting more paperwork, and we go through the files and find that, and then they put together a report. It cost us, our museum pays $7,500 a year for this independent audit, and that's one of the steps that we do to maintain our 501c3 nonprofit status. $7,500 might not sound like a lot of money, but our museum charges $4 a person to come in, and we average about 11,000 to 12,000 people a year. So that's a big chunk of our admission money just going to pay for the audit. And there's additional paperwork that we do quarterly, to maintain our status and keep everybody at the state happy. So it does take some extra paperwork that's not involved in a for-profit business, and there are some things that we can't do, and we have to be extremely selective about people that we work with as far as non-compete. We can't have anybody on our board that's in the building business and help us build our new building we're trying to build in our parking lot. So we have to be very selective on some of the things that we're able to do and not do because of our 501c3 status.
Wendell?
Well, it's a challenge for I think all nonprofits. Certainly it is for us as well. One of the things that we try to tell our management team is the only time that we want to try to think as a nonprofit is when we're asking for donations so they can be tax deductible. We try to encourage an entrepreneurial spirit. and that makes it even tougher, I think. Tom and Mitch know this. We have a chief financial officer, CPA, that is truly outstanding, and we look to her to kind of take care of us from all aspects there, but it's even becoming more challenging for us in that we started doing raffles of Corvettes about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And as the economy went in the tank, then all of a sudden we could get all the Corvettes that we wanted to raffle. So last year we did about 36 raffles, generated about $5 million. Our cost on that was about $2.5 million, roughly about 50%, because we do have to buy the cars. And we're fortunate that we have a group of volunteers that will come in and help us process those raffle tickets, and that's a key aspect of keeping that nonprofit status from that as well. But we try to do a lot of things and do more things that are educational focused with school groups and things that'll make sure that we maintain that nonprofit status as well. And we're looking to do the same thing as much as we can as we move to the recreational motorsports. We want education to be a big focus over there as well. So we're going to continue to try to maintain our nonprofit status. We also go through something similar as well. We charge $10 admission. We'll have about 150,000 annual visitors, generally all 50 states and about 60 foreign countries. So little different approach, but it is a challenge and a growing challenge.
How do you guys go ahead, and again, we'll start out with Bob, how do you appraise your collection? I mean, we're talking a lot of priceless, one-of-a-kind things. How do you appraise that, and more importantly, backing it up, how do you go about securing the right insurance, or talk a little bit about that?
That's really hard for our museum because most of the cars in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum are loaned to us for a period between 6 months to a year, like Tony Stewart's cars or Mario Andretti's race cars. So the cars are constantly changing. We change the inventory of the cars on display to change the stories to attract visitors so they'll come back more than once. So there's only 8 cars that the museum actually owns. And so we've had those appraised, and then our insurance company writes an umbrella policy that covers the cars not only when they're in our museum, but whenever they're out at a racetrack or we're in a shopping center or we're taking them to a school, for one of the programs that we do. So we have a $3.5 million policy that covers the cars and all the contents of our museum. And basically that's been appraised by 2 different people and then averaged out with the insurance company.
Was that one of the tough things to work around as far as getting some of these tribute collections together? Did people were a little bit leery about that?
The hardest part on getting like Tony's cars and Jeff's cars and Mario's cars is when we got the race cars, we had nowhere to put them. Our museum was full of race cars, and so fortunately we had a great group of volunteers that live in Knoxville. And so you can imagine the look on these race guys' eyes when we said we'd like to park your race cars in John's garage 2 blocks away from the racetrack. He's one of our volunteers. And they said, "You want to do what?" They said, "We want to park your Indy car that you raced in the Indy 500 in John's garage down the street 2 blocks because we don't have anywhere to park the race car." And, Tony said, "Well, will your insurance cover it?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, our policy will cover it." He goes, "That's fine with me." So all the guys, Jeff, Mario, and Tony have all been great with us, but we realize moving forward, if we're going to continue to have these world-class exhibits, that we need the space to do storage and the staging of the events. So we're in the process now of building a new building where the old car wash was, right across from our property, a 3-story building where we can bring in the race cars, have them secured on our property, 24-hour surveillance before we bring them into the museum. And likewise, a place, when we put those cars in the museum, when we brought Tony's cars in the first time, we had to find a place for 8 cars. We ended up putting those 8 cars in shopping malls for 6 months. It was a great promotion for the Hall of Fame, but again, our insurance was stretched a little bit to cover those, but we managed it. So we need space. We're space starved right now where we are, and that's what we're working on.
Wendell?
Very similar. We have a $15 million umbrella. Most of our cars are also on loan from different Corvette owners and enthusiasts. And in our loan agreement, we specify that they'll continue to maintain primary insurance on their vehicles. So very similar. So that's, I guess for our 2 museums, that's not a challenge, but I know there's many museums that it is.
Very good, and I think the reputation that you both have is why you're able to work those details out a little bit better. Does anybody have a question? Okay, we're going to start off over here.
So Wendell, is it true that everybody in this room is going to get a free Corvette after this meeting today?
I haven't heard that. Must not be true.
Okay.
This one's for Bob.
Tim,
Yes, go ahead.
could you get me a bottle of water?
I can barely hear you.
What was the question?
This is for Bob. Obviously, Wendell and these guys have the advantage of being right off the highway and very visible, and everybody who has a Corvette wants to go there. You guys are located way off the beaten path. I'm curious, obviously you get a lot of traffic during Knoxville Nationals. What's the traffic on a regular race weekend, and then what's the traffic in the off-season like?
If there's an event at Knoxville Raceway, like a regular Saturday night sprint car race, we can get 50 to 150 people through the museum just to go through the museum, not counting the 400 plus people we have that come to view the races and the suites on top of us. On a regular day like today back at the museum in Knoxville where it's 30 degrees maybe at tops, we'll get maybe 10, 20 visitors on a day like today. So it's pretty slow during the winter months when there's no races. Of course, the Knoxville Nationals account for over half of our attendance during those 4 days, and that's turned into 10 nights of racing up in Knoxville now. So, you know, that's just increased the amount of people that come through during those 10 days when the Knoxville Nationals happens in August.
Anybody else with a question? My question for you both. First of all, Bob, how the hell do you get away with charging only $4 for admission? But how do you raise enough money when you want to make capital improvements to your facility as you're talking with the storage?
We look to our volunteers, to our members, to our donors, people that have supported us in the past. We also work with all the different state and county grant writing, foundations, people that will donate money to us. The building that I mentioned a little bit earlier, when we started with the idea to build that staging and storage building, it was going to be a $1.8 million project back in 2011. They told me 6 weeks ago the price has gone up to $1.94 million for the staging and storage, and we're a little over halfway there. We're at 57% of that cash, that money that we've raised in pledges and cash. So it's taking a little bit longer than we anticipated. We thought it would take 3 years, maybe a little longer. It might take 4 or 5 years, but we just talk with the people that support sprint car racing, people that are involved in the sport, and they know that we're doing the right thing. You know, we've been there since 1986, and we continue to take all the money that comes in and use it to the best ability we can to help make the museum the best place for visitors and everybody that comes by.
Wendell?
When we first went to the museum in December of 1996, remember again that it opened in September 94, so many bridges had been burned with the local community, with Corvette assembly plant, with the local Convention and Visitors Bureau, with General Motors and Chevrolet, and it was actually considerably worse than we'd been led to believe as we kind of chatted with some folks with this opportunity. But the first thing that we asked, we didn't ask anybody for a donation. We didn't feel like that we had earned that right yet. So we asked Corvette enthusiasts. We had a database at that time of about 18,000 mailing addresses. So we mailed a letter to, and most of them, of course, were Corvette people. So we mailed a letter and we asked them to become a member of the museum, and at that time membership was 1,620. So we asked them to support their museum by becoming a member of the museum. And we also shared that statement with them: if it is to be, it is up to me. And I told them the me is not Wendell Strode, the me is Corvette owners and enthusiasts. And another very good thing that happened shortly after that was in January 1997 is when the C5 come out, and that generated a lot of enthusiasm with enthusiasts, and they wanted to come see the Corvette assembly plant. but we begin to do some events. We try to get different folks involved in doing some things with us that hadn't been done before. We got Dale Earnhardt to come there for an autograph session that we charged for, and he actually agreed to come back the second time on his time, not Chevrolet's time. But we've always looked for ways to increase revenue from different aspects. Like one of the things that we started a few years back was, maybe 4 years back, we have our own insurance agency that insures collector cars. So we're always looking to try to do things to generate revenue. We have not been very successful in grant writing. We have not been successful in getting funds from local or state governments. It's all been just operating revenue for the most part. Those raffles have certainly been a huge help for us. Our gift shop, our Corvette store, it'll do about $3 million in sales. In 1996, total revenue for the museum was about $2 million. Last year it was about $12 million. So you can see we've had a lot of improvement from that standpoint. Probably about 10 years ago, then we felt like we had earned the right to begin asking for donations, and we started an annual capital campaign and asked people to, to consider making a donation to the museum. And every year that's expanded. We actually do that twice a year now, spring and fall. And of course, with the opening of the Motorsports Park, that's been a major emphasis that we've had on soliciting donations for that. And this year we've collected over $2 million in donations just to help us out with the Motorsports Park. But every year our donations have increased, and so it's all come from operating and just trying to find more ways to get people to come to the museum.
Bob, obviously the easiest customer to get to the Sprint Car Hall of Fame is someone who's already enjoyed a visit to the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. But how do you measure how often you need to make changes in your facility and in some of your displays?
We're looking all the time, constantly, at ways of attracting new people to the museum. And one of the things we talked a little bit about earlier was our Stay in School program we just started about a month ago, where race teams and racetracks across the United States can go to a high school and put on a free presentation. The Hall of Fame will provide the brochures, and the brochures are really a key part of it because there's 12 colleges inside the brochure that tell the high school students where they can get a good education in the motorsports field. If they want to get a degree or a certificate or, something to help them move their education along in motorsports. We started the program, actually it's Doug Ald's program. He started 6 years ago with Sprint Car Midget Magazine, turned the program over to us recently, and we've been able to get 12 colleges involved to start off, and we're real excited about not only being able to bring a sprint car to the high schools for the kids to see the race car and learn about the technology, but also to talk to them about a possible education in the motorsports field and staying in school, which is very important today. So we're looking at bringing young people, school-age kids, whether it be high school kids or junior high school kids, and then we have a program locally with the elementary school where every fifth grader in the Knoxville School District gets brought through the Hall of Fame once a year. The school is about 3 blocks from our museum, so it's a field trip for the kids. They walk to the museum, so they don't have to pay for a bus. They bring a sack lunch, and they sit on the second floor after they've gone through the first half of the tour, and they have their lunch on the second floor overlooking the racetrack. And we've learned with fifth graders their favorite movie is Crash, 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 so we put that on in the movie theater for them. And then if it's dry enough out, we let them go out and walk around, kick around out on the racetrack a little bit, and they're in turn 2 in front of the museum. So just trying to get the kids interested and give them a little bit of feel for sprint car racing. So many of the kids that we talk to, whether they be fifth graders that live in Knoxville or kids out on the road when we take our raffle car, which is another program we have also with our sprint car raffle car, so many young people have never been to a sprint car race, and so just to get a sprint car in front of them is, we feel, a first step in helping us promote the future of the sport. So anything that we could do to get people interested in coming to a racetrack and watching a sprint car race is part of our mission at the museum also.
Wendell, how often do you have to change your exhibits to keep them lively?
Well, similar to what they do is we also do loan agreements 6 months to 18 months. So we're kind of refreshing the cars on display from that standpoint. One of the other things that we've done is, over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, is every year we'll try to do something that makes more of an interactive exhibit, utilizing some of the technology that's been talked about, and that seems to be engaging our visitors quite a bit more. One of the major challenges that we had and still have is most people around Bowling Green community within, say, 50 miles. I've driven by there. I have never stopped. I've never been to the Corvette Museum. I want to go sometime. So when we did the remodeling that we talked about, or the building addition at 47,000 square feet, 8,000 of that is what we call an exhibit hall, and it's set up where we can change out that exhibit very easily. So about every 3 months we'll have a different exhibit theme there. Like right now it's motorcycles. Then from January to about March, April, it'll be a kind of a science-related exhibit that's to try to get school groups to make field trips there. We've done a muscle car exhibit. We took some heat from that because we had Ford Cobras there, and we had some Chrysler products, but we felt if you was going to try to tell a story about muscle cars, then you needed those in the museum. So we try to do that to try to get folks that maybe wouldn't normally come to a Corvette museum to try to get them to come, and that helps.
One of the things that I'm sometimes critical of racetracks is they don't always know how to network in their own communities. I've got a great dirt track now. I didn't check the attendees list, so if they're in the audience, I'm going to be in trouble soon. But Sycamore Speedway out by me is just about 6 miles out of town, and most people that live in Sycamore and DeKalb don't even know that it exists. Yet it's some of the best, as I love to call it, Illinois redneck racing around. Great dirt track racing. How do you guys work within your community to make sure that people in your community and the surrounding communities know that you exist?
One of the programs that we do in Knoxville is at the beginning of the race season. Usually it's in March or April. We go to all the schools in Knoxville, the high schools, the elementary schools. I think there's 4 schools altogether. We take a couple of race cars, and there's a national program called School Breakfast, National Nutrition Breakfast Week. And Casey's General Stores provides on 2 of those occasions a taco pizza breakfast, which is supposed to be nutritional. And then the Optimist Club in Knoxville on the other 2 dates makes pancakes and sausage for the kids. So the kids in all the schools get a free breakfast. They get to see the race cars, meet the race car drivers, get some autographs, and then we have a small assembly where they get a chance to win some tickets and prizes, from the museum, and free passes, that type of thing. So we try to get information into the school system to the kids so that they can take it home to the parents, and that's what we do in our Knoxville area.
Well, it is a continuing challenge, like you all mentioned, but when we done our building addition in 2009, one of the other things that we added was a conference center that will do 500 people sit-down dinner. And so we will be generous in allowing other nonprofits to use that. We work with our Chamber of Commerce to have coffee hours there. We also work with about 20 other nonprofits and allow them to have a fundraising type activity at the museum to help them because we feel like it's that awareness that it's creating into the community. And I think that if you went to Bowling Green, Kentucky community now, that people feel much better and more aware and are visiting better than they have in times past, but it's something you just can never let up on.
He's right. Wendell's exactly right. It's a continuing process. Our second floor, we do a lot of those nonprofit events up there for people, and we can hold 200 to 250 people, and wedding receptions, lots of events for youth, and the more community events that we can hold on that second floor, the more people it brings to our museum that have never been there before or been to Knoxville Raceway for that fact, just to get more people involved in the sport and what we're trying to promote.
And I think that works for racetracks as well as museums and everything else. You've got all these rooms, you got space, and you put it to good use, it will pay off down the road.
I thought it was interesting that someone said they did a 5K on their racetrack.
Yes, yes. Well, guys, thank you so much for visiting with us. I encourage you to get out to the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. It's quite a facility, and as soon as Wendell gives me the keys to my new Corvette today, I look forward to getting down there as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, and thanks to Tim and Margot and Dennis, all of you guys.
Rumors spreading round in that Texas town about the shack outside the game. And you know what I'm talking about. Just let me know if you wanna go to that home out on the range. They got a lot of nice girls.